Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and what a wild day it has been in Washington, D.C., with Kevin McCarthy and his bid for Speaker failing, as of right now, twice. With votes on the floor, there are 19 GOP representatives who are staunchly saying absolutely not. And there is, of course, a disparity in what people think about this. There is a large base, especially if you look at the Twitter commentary, of members of just constituencies and regular Americans that are very happy about this. But then some prominent people who kind of understand how Washington works are saying, wait a minute, this isn't about policy. This is just about these 19 people being more self-serving. I happen to agree with them, but I think that my guest, Marc, who is the Chief Communications Director for the America First Policy Institute, disagrees with me. So, Marc, what is your take right now with everything that's going on in Washington? What is the likelihood that Kevin McCarthy is successful here?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how this is all going to play out. If those 19 members, or at least 5 of them, remain hard-nosed, then they're going to have to move on to a different candidate. You know, I've heard that there may or may not be a deal on the table. There has apparently been a deal that they couldn't get reached. Maybe they do. I just don't know. The biggest concern that I have, though, and I don't see this as being a policy argument, and that's where I have a problem with this, because whether it is members of those 19 that are holding out, or whether it's Kevin McCarthy or even Steve Scalise or Jim Jordan, they're all running on the same policies. They're all running on America First policies, getting American energy independent again, getting tough on China, securing the border, lowering inflation. I mean, the things that we've talked about so long, it's all the same platform. This seems to me more about how these 19 folks represent a group that they want more power, they want more influence, they want more committee assignments. That's not what the people sent you there to Washington, D.C. to do. They want to see stuff done.
Well, do you think it's more that they just want power, these 19, or is it that they are pushing back so strongly against the establishment? Because even though I think you're right that there is a large overlap in the Venn diagram of policy, that does suggest it's the same platform that McCarthy, Scalise, and even someone like Jim Jordan, who obviously he doesn't even want the speakership. So that's out of the question. For people who are hoping it's Jim Jordan, that's just not going to happen. But for anyone that is emerging out of the Republican caucus to actually be speaker, they are for America First policies. But at the same time, this is a question of leadership. And so it's also a question of what policies will be prioritized. And it's also pushing back against the establishment. I see Kevin McCarthy having failed the vote twice just wanting really a power grab in the same way that we saw the failed speakership of Paul Ryan, with the first 2 years of the Trump administration that you and I were there for. Someone like McCarthy, who is going to cave to this kind of uniparty ideal and not really genuinely represent America First ideals. And in my mind, that's more of what Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, even, and some of these others who really genuinely are America First, and the Matt Gaetz party and Andy Biggs are really objecting to. So isn't this more about leadership and establishment versus true America First?
Well, I think there's got to be, I mean, governing is never easy. And, I recall back in the time, when this is not new to Republicans. We've been doing this for a very long time. Paul Ryan didn't want to be Speaker of the House. It was another conservative revolt that kind of led to him being recruited back when he became Speaker. So this is nothing new. I think the one difference, though, and this is the biggest hope, no matter who emerges from this, is that we've got to come together. And that doesn't always mean that we get 100% of what we want. Sometimes we've got to accept 90%. And right now, 90% of the Republican Party has voted for Kevin McCarthy. It's less than 10% that has voted for someone else. Now, how this works out, I don't know. But the one thing that we do know, and I go back to a lot of these spending fights that we had early in the Trump years, or even before that, when the Freedom Caucus or other members wouldn't provide their support, it required us to go to Democrats to get that support. And then you raise the stakes, you raise the ante. That's when you raise spending, because we've got to at some point get down to governing. That's what people sent them for. They want to get tough with China, secure the border, lower energy prices. The policies are all there in place. But if we actually want to get something done, we've got to get 218 votes to do it.
Yeah, and I think that that's definitely true, that the American people who are Republicans and who are conservatives and who've been tired of really the last 4 years of Speaker Pelosi and certainly the last 2 years of the insane Biden agenda really want to see something come out of this Republican majority. So the question isn't, in my mind, so much policy. It's who is the best leader that isn't going to make some of those compromises. And when you look at what the agenda really should be, how do you think that plays, though, into the back and forth that is going to be necessary with the composition of the Senate? I was talking to Jim Jordan on my radio show earlier, and he was saying that's going to be a very tough uphill battle. And so whoever is Speaker, are we going to have to make some concessions, or what do you see actually genuinely happening in the next 2 years to advance America First policy?
Sadly, nothing. I think that this Congress is going to do the bare minimum that they have to do, which is, by the way, not an indication of how this speaker vote is going to go. You have a Republican-controlled House, you have a Democrat-controlled Senate, and you have a Democrat White House. So they're going to pass the government funding bills. It'll be a compromise between the Republicans and the Democrats in terms of, welfare spending and all the other stuff that the Democrats are going to insist on, and then Republican priorities being also heard. But aside from that, I think that you're going to see mostly gridlock. You're going to see the Biden administration do executive action, because that's the only way they're going to be able to get things done. The Senate will continue confirming judges and cabinet officials, because that's the only thing they're going to be able to do. But at the end of the day, aside from the things which are the majority, which is the 90% issues in renaming post office after themselves and all that kind of other nonsense, nothing is going to get done in this Congress of substance, barring some sort of a national or global emergency that requires leadership.
Yeah, well, and we certainly saw that in 2020, and how the Democrats really have used that as a pretext to move forward with their absurd policies that infringe on the American people. And it's my hope, and I think that you're right, to kind of temper people's expectations of what a majority Republican Congress can actually accomplish on their own. But what I would love to see is just simply stopping any of the wild, outrageous policies. I would love to stop seeing, President Zelensky from Ukraine coming on the congressional floor and speaking, and, sending billions at this point of our tax dollars over to Ukraine instead of fighting inflation and other things that Americans actually need, seeing the defunding of the 87,000 IRS agents that the Biden administration wants, and also some legal challenges. That was one of the things that the 19 really did want, reportedly, is to say that they wanted more legal challenges against an overreaching executive, because as you just mentioned, very wisely, Marc, a lot of things now will come up to Biden having to do this by executive action that may be outside the scope of his legitimate Article 2 authority. So how do you see the Republicans in this new majority and under a leader, whether it's Kevin McCarthy or someone else, actually challenging some of these things as executive overreach? And isn't that something fair that the 19 are reportedly wanting?
Well, I think there's a certain amount of fairness to that. But the one thing I will tell you, and please, Jenna, you're the expert, not me in this area, is that the courts have generally not liked getting involved between the two branches of government. So that's where the outside organizations, and there are many of them out there, obviously America First Policy Institute, where I work, America First Legal, there are many outside organizations that are doing that lawsuit judicial push, but not making it a constitutional branch versus constitutional branch. So I think there's obviously a role for Congress there. There's also a role for oversight. We've got to give somebody the gavel so we can actually swear these new members in and take over those oversight committees. And then I think the third parties can actually come alongside and do a lot of that legal work as well. That can all happen, and I think that will all happen, regardless of who comes out on top in this race. But at the end of the day, you know, this is where I think where politics turns away the American people, because this is not a fight that they asked for. They don't care. Most of the American people, obviously not the ones who are a small minority who are on Twitter and in our social media channels, they're not following this each and every day like we do. They just want someone to lower gas prices, secure the border, make sure that their kids aren't being indoctrinated into schools, and all of the other nonsense that we see going on. So this is a distraction. I think it's a little repulsive for the average everyday American out there. They just want to see somebody get there, get to work on behalf of their issues. And then let's send a few bills over to the Senate and watch them die, and make sure that they know that it's the Senate, the Democrat Senate, that is not on your side, which is not for America First policies. And then that allows us to start to draw that contrast, which we so need in the years to come.
Yeah, and I think you're right in terms of, you know, the just average everyday American who, you know, isn't in the weeds in politics the same way that you and I are in DC every day. But at the same time, I think we have seen a rise and a resurgence of the America First base that is a lot more finely attuned to this, because they've seen how messed up DC is, and largely in thanks to President Trump and seeing and shining a light on the swamp. So I do think that there are more people who are paying attention to things like the speakership and to things like the leader of the RNC, who that chairperson is, and people who want their voice to be heard and aren't just looking at this as a trustee sort of form of representative government, but are truly wanting representation that takes into account what they're thinking and how they're feeling, and saying, you know, yeah, we have to address the gas prices, the economy, all of those things that hit everyone close to home daily. But people also do want to make sure that their voices are heard. So how important do you think it is for the Republican majority moving forward to just quickly decide on a speaker, whether that's Kevin McCarthy or someone else? Because there are concerns now that this might even be lost to Democrat Hakeem Jeffress, which, if that's the case, then I think a lot more people are going to be upset than even if Kevin McCarthy gets in.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you cannot have that become a reality. You cannot have a deal struck, and because I think that hurts the movement long term. If we end up winning the majority and giving a radical liberal, the gavel and the speakership. But the one thing I would say, and I don't disagree with you on your earlier point there, Jenna, but I think the one thing, and I think it's true for all of us, and, you know, no matter where you are on the spectrum of the conservative movement, that just because I'm only 90% in agreement with you doesn't mean I'm 10% your enemy. And that maybe sometimes we all have to, I think it was Ronald Reagan who said that, but maybe we have to accept less than 100% of what we want doesn't mean we give up fighting for that last 10%, doesn't mean we stop campaigning for it, driving for it, striving for it. But sometimes the government is designed to move in small steps. And if we expect 100% fealty to everything, we may be more disappointed than not. And I've often said this, and you know this as well. It's like, especially when it comes to candidates, if you want a candidate who 100% agrees with you, look in the mirror and run. It's the only way it's ever going to happen. So let's allow our leaders to lead. Let's allow them to govern, keep them focused on the movement toward America First policies. We may not always get there in one fell swoop, but I know that's where we're going. And the more that we show that we can do the job, and that the Democrats are the obstructionists, they're the ones that are embracing radical socialism, then I think we're going to continue winning more and more people's hearts and minds long term. This is a generational kind of movement, I think, in the political spectrum. It's not just one election that did it, might have triggered it and started it, but I think it's building and it's moving, and we're moving in the right direction. We just have to keep going that way.
Yeah, and I would agree with you absolutely that incrementalism is a necessity in Washington because things don't happen just overnight changes unless they come from, for example, the Supreme Court reversing Roe versus Wade. I mean, that was a huge step that came from the judiciary. That type of thing isn't going to happen overnight from Congress, and obviously that's the judiciary. It's not a congressional policy decision. Don't confuse the two. But in terms of something that is so dramatic of a change, and a lot of times conservatives are against small wins because they think it doesn't go far enough, and so they object to that as if it's a compromise in a way that they say, well, because it's not everything I want, then we need to be against that, and so we're sacrificing those small wins. But I also think it's important that the ball is moving in the right direction. And for a lot of the people that I hear from that listen to this show, that listen to my radio show, what they're concerned about is that the McLeadership, the Ronna McDaniel and Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell, are moving the ball much more toward a uniparty and to more of an establishment vein in their leadership than to truly America First policies. And I think that is really the key here, is that people just simply don't trust the current GOP leadership. And that's why this is a watershed moment in terms of the identity of the GOP. Are they going to remain in an establishment pre-Trump model, or are they going to take those big and even incremental changes of his administration to further the agenda toward true conservative policies, true America First policies that no other president since Ronald Reagan or even in my lifetime had the courage to truly promote? So where do you think the GOP's identity goes from here, and why should we trust the leadership moving in that direction instead of kind of moving the ball more in an establishment vein?
Well, I think the one thing we also have to remember, and it's funny because I remember President Trump joking about it when we were on the 2020 campaign, that he ran as an outsider and he really couldn't say that he was an outsider anymore because he was the president. And so, what becomes the insurgency, what starts as an insurgency always becomes the establishment, because when you win that insurgency, you actually have to do the job. And without getting into specific names, because obviously I work for a nonpartisan, policy institute, but I think, let's remember that this has been a long-term march. It started in 2016. We gained House seats in 2020, even though we didn't see the outcome at the presidential level that we'd all hoped for. We won House seats when we shouldn't have. We won House seats in 2022 when, obviously we weren't able to do that in other areas. There were areas, obviously, in the election outcomes that didn't turn out the way we wanted to, both at the gubernatorial and at the Senate level. But I think we're moving in the right direction. We're seeing enormous gains, whether it's with in the Hispanic and Latino communities, whether it's in the Black community. We're even starting to see some movement back, I think, in the suburban communities. So we can be a big tent party all marching in the same direction, because I think when you look at the policies that were championed by Donald Trump, when you look at the America First policies that are being run on, campaigned on, and enacted today, they are all 80% issues. It's not just 80% of Republicans, it's like 80% of Americans. support a secure border, America's energy independence, the things that we've talked about. So this isn't partisan. We just have to do a better job of explaining it and then making sure that we get that message and those voters out to the polls. So I think the leaders that we have, in many cases, without using names, are still supportive of those policies. They're still working to enact and elect leaders that support those policies. We haven't had the results that we've always wanted, but I think we're still moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and I really hope that we can message that better because, as you've said, border security isn't a Republican versus Democrat issue. It is an America First issue, and it is something that approximately over 80% of Americans do support. And that shouldn't be something that is just championed by Republicans as if that's something that we want that is a partisan issue. And there are many such issues that we do need to phrase better. And I think that you and America First Policy Institute do an excellent job of that messaging. And so in just the last few minutes that I have with you here, Marc Lauder, and of course, we're going to continue to look at the speaker vote and how that progresses into the evening and even into tomorrow morning. So definitely tune in for Jenna Ellis in the morning on America First radio network. You can go to afr.net for that. It's live 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern. But Marc Lauder, so the final question I have for you, though, is as you're looking at messaging, as you're looking at moving this forward into 2024, and obviously Donald Trump has already announced that he's running. We'll see what other Republicans jump in. But what will be the priorities and what should be the priorities for not only the America First Policy Institute, but for conservatives in general outside of just elected office, these third parties and these nonprofits that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think we have to hold this administration accountable. And the one difference that I always say between 2020 and 2024 is that Joe Biden has a record. He didn't have a record in 2020. He was a hypothetical president who hid in the basement as a hypothetical president. Well, guess what? We now know what your policies have done. Highest inflation in history, or in 40 years. Highest gas prices in history. Worst stock market since 2008. Worst immigration, illegal immigration in history. These are all facts, and they are the direct result of Joe Biden's policies. So whomever picks up the mantle on the America First movement, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's someone else, whether it is the same team, of leaders that we have right now, or whether that's different folks, we have to draw the contrast. And we don't have to be afraid to draw the contrast. Joe Biden has a record. It's a record of failure. Make it about the record. It's not about Hunter. It's not about, gaffes and trips and stumbles and misquotes. That's all inside politics. It didn't work in 2020. It's not working now. If we talk about the policies and how they are directly, negatively impacting people in their homes, in their lives, in their kids' classrooms, we are going to win every single day of the week. And so whether you are a member of Congress or working in Congress, whether you're running for the White House, whether you're running for the State House, if you do those things every day, I think you'll be successful.
So how did we not do that then in 2022 and message that with the first 2 years of Joe Biden? Because, a lot of people are blaming that on election integrity issues. A lot of people are blaming that on, the McLeadership. And I think you're right that we need to do more of what happened in the state of Virginia, for example, with Glenn Youngkin focusing on parents and getting people out to the polls and focusing genuinely on messaging. But messaging only works if people actually are paying attention and they're listening. I think we do have a large base that does pay attention and they want to be involved. But as you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of people who are still just believing, Democrat advertisements and other things that, the memes that, and the left can't even meme, but some of these other things that they see on social media rather than the facts. And so what happened in 2022 and how can we change that heading into 2024?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is make sure that we are nominating candidates that can win in their home districts. And I think the number one way we do that is by focusing on the future. It doesn't matter about the past. It doesn't matter who you supported in the past. It doesn't matter who, what your take was on individual issues in the past. What I want to know and what the voters want to know is, what are you going to do to change my future? What are you going to do to change my future for the better? And I think when you get candidates that can articulate that America First message, when they can connect in their districts, in their states, in a way that connects with those people, those voters, then I think we win. If we're going to judge the worthiness of a candidate based on something or their beliefs on something that happened years ago, that's not really important to me. It's important what you want to do in the future. There'll be a lot of people who opposed various aspects of the former president, of the former president's administration, or what have you, because of their feelings on one thing or another. Let's put that aside. Let's talk about the future. What are you going to be there for us in the future? Because if you are and you can win, then that's who the person is I want leading us, because it's the policies that are going to move us forward.
Yeah, it is all about the future, and that's very well said. And for the people who say, well, the 2020 election mattered, what's going on in Arizona, there's some current appeals and some of those things with election integrity. Of course, the issue of election integrity matters, but we do always need to be forward focused and saying, okay, what can the legislature actually accomplish now? What the state legislatures, what actually can we accomplish now that is still constitutional, it's still viable in terms of process, in terms of policy, and those other constitutional questions. So Marc Lotter, always really appreciate hearing from you, and keep up the good work at America First Policy Institute. How can people see what you are accomplishing, and where can they follow you?
They can follow me at Marc with a C _Lotter on Twitter, Instagram, and my Facebook. You can also follow us at AmericaFirstPolicy.com. We've got the America First Agenda, 350-page policy book that's at the state and local level and federal level of policies that people can enact and demand to be enacted at their state and federally to get America moving forward again.
Yeah, well, really great. And for people who are saying, you're listening to this show and you're thinking, wow, I really want this to be accomplished. Well, get in the game, get off the sidelines, go down to your state capital, talk to your state legislators, know their names, have them know your name. That's even more important than you knowing their name. Take that policy manual, tell them that you want that enacted. Get your fellow citizens to come down and testify in front of your state legislature. We are a constitutional republic, as Benjamin Franklin said, if we can keep it. That requires citizens' initiative and citizen responsibility and activism. And ultimately, we, the people, have to hold our elected leaders accountable. So Marc Lotter, really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And I'll see you tomorrow on the Jenna Ellis Show, and tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern time on Jenna Ellis in the Morning at afr.net. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook. You need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. It's time to make your health great again as we get closer to the new year. For anyone looking to ignite your fat-burning metabolism, boost your energy, and transform how you look and feel, you must start taking care of your liver now. Your liver is your body's master detoxifier. It performs over 500 key functions in your body every day. It's responsible for cleansing and removing thousands of harmful toxins, man-made chemicals, alcohol, and dangerous food additives and preservatives. After decades decades of wear and tear, our livers slow down and become sluggish. And this is why so many of us struggle with weight gain and feeling tired all of the time. So fortunately, there is a simple, all-natural solution that I absolutely recommend. It's called Liver Health Formula. Liver Health Formula contains 12 powerful botanicals clinically proven to recharge and protect your liver at the cellular level. It also helps restore your liver's detoxifying abilities, boost your energy levels, and you can kick your natural metabolism into high gear. So Liver Health Formula is backed by science and approved by American doctors. Every bottle is also manufactured right here in America too. So as of right now, as a listener to the Jenna Ellis Show, you can try Liver Health Formula completely risk-free and receive 5 free gifts when you order today. First, you'll receive a free 30-day supply of nano-powered omega-3. This is a powerful blend of omega-3 fatty acids that supports a healthy heart and brain, with 4 times better absorption thanks to this special nano delivery system. You'll also get 4 free ebooks to support every aspect of your health and longevity, regardless of your age. So go to getliverhelp.com/Jenna or call toll-free at 800-282-1757 to claim your risk-free supply of Liver Health Formula and all 5 bonus gifts. That's getliverhelp.com/Jenna or call 1-800-282-1757. You're covered by their 365-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing at all to risk. But supplies are limited, so head over to getliverhelp.com/Jenna or call toll-free 800-282-1757 now to order Liver Health Formula and get your 5 free bonus gifts. That's getliverhelp.com/Jenna or call 1-800-282-1757.